everyone, so this weekend I Covet is having a bit of a drugstore takeover, and I do like to talk about my high-end products, my Space NKs, all sorts of things like that, but really there are just so many amazing gems to be found in the lower price, more budget brands, all around the Isles of Boots and Superdrug, places that I just like to hang out for most of my day. I really wanted to do a top 10 favourite makeup products for you, but let's be honest, it was always going to be more than 10, and I think I have probably more than 20 or 30 things in front of me here, so I'm going to try and really narrow them down and get through them, but there are just so many amazing things to talk about. So all of these things I'm pretty sure are under £10 and really affordable, really easy to get hold of as well. So let's start with base, I think, and I have two primers here that I absolutely love and I really can't talk about enough. The first one I have featured quite a lot very recently. This is the Max Factor Facefinity All Day Primer. Such an amazing one for smoothing out the texture of your skin and just helping your makeup last for such a long time and having it go on a lot nicer as well. It's very smoothing and really lovely for the skin, especially if you have kind of large pores and if you do get a lot of oiliness throughout the day. It's a really great one for that. I do find it's quite moisturising too though, so for me, someone that has very dry skin at the moment, it still feels really lovely and it almost kind of locks in the moisture to my skin. I never get any dryness or flaky patches when I use this, so that's definitely a winner. If you are someone though that's looking for a really dewy, amazingly intense, glowy base, then the L'Oreal Lumi Magique is definitely the one for you. It's so incredibly glowy and brightening and amazing. It's not got any glitter in it at all though. It's very magical how it works. I'd actually compare it to Benefit's High Beam, except it's very white and neutral. It doesn't have any pink tones in it, and I used to be such a massive fan of Estee Lauder's Double Wear foundation, which we should all know is just the most mattifying full coverage thing ever, and putting this underneath even made that glowy. So if you're looking for dewy skin, this is just amazing. When it comes to foundations from the drugstore, it always has to be one from Bourjois for me. They just get their bases so right, and the Healthy Mix is just absolutely my favourite, probably one of my favourite all-time foundations ever, compared to high-end, low-end, anything at all. It's so lovely and hydrating and very glow boosting as well. You can probably tell there's a trend forming with all my makeup. I like things that are very dewy and very glowy. Probably better suited to the more dry skin girls out there. If you do have a kind of oily combination skin type, you may need to use a mattifying primer underneath this, but I think it could still work so well for you. It's got amazing coverage and yet it never looks cakey at all. It never looks like you're wearing a lot of foundation. It just smooths everything out really beautifully, and it's always just been a firm favourite of mine. Another favourite from Bourjois is their Java Rice powder, and if you watch my videos a lot, you know that I go on and on about the Hourglass ambient lighting powders, specifically the ones in dim light and diffuse light, which are just my two favourites. This stuff though is basically an Hourglass ambient lighting powder in a loose powder form for about a quarter of the price. It's so incredibly similar, and actually if I really had to pick, I'd say this is probably better. It's slightly more mattifying on the skin, so it definitely sets your makeup down a lot better. It kind of tends to last longer when I'm wearing this, but it still has that really amazing dewy, glowy look that you just can't get from any other powders. I think highlighters are probably one of the things that drugstore brands, budget brands have yet to really crack, but there is one particular one that I love. It's from Topshop, and I think all Topshop makeup is really amazing. The lipsticks have such an amazing range of shades and the formulas are lovely, and I think their eyeshadows, their blushes, their cream blushes, I used to live in them and love them, but this is their glow highlighter and it's such a pretty kind of iridescent white creamy highlight. I do find with some liquid highlights they tend to almost take my makeup off as I'm putting it on, so they go very patchy and they disrupt everything, but this doesn't do that at all. It's such a perfect creamy formula. It just glides on really effortlessly. You can put it on with fingers or use a brush and it works really well both ways. I think they have a slightly more bronzy toned of this one too, but this is the shade Polished, and I think it's just the perfect highlight, so that one I love as well. When it comes to blushes, there really are so many things I could pick. I love the Rimmel blushes, Maybelline do some really great shades as well, L'Oreal have great blushes, but I think the one that really stands out for me of all the drugstore brands has to be Sleek. They just have such a variety of colours and I think their formulas really are unbeatable. I think I probably own most of the collection of Sleek blushes. I remember when I was first getting into makeup, I used to go off to Superdrug with my pocket money or whatever money I could find and buy a new Sleek blush, and they just really excited me at the time. So these have been very well loved, and I have three of my favourites here. So the first one is Suede, and this was from the nude collection they brought out a few years ago, and I remember when everyone used to be really into the new Sleek collections, and this is such a pretty orangey tone brown. Not something I would ever have thought to have bought or put on my skin. I would see this and think it would look awful on me, but it just gives a really nice natural look to the cheeks. It's almost something in between a bronzer and a blush, so if you want a bit of definition colour but you don't want anything too over the top and bright, this this is just the perfect one. And I also really like to wear this when I have a bright lip on, so especially reds. It just seems to work really well together and doesn't look like you're wearing too much colour and too much makeup on your face. And then probably the complete opposite of that is Pixie Pink, and this is probably the most fluorescent, bright, out there pink I actually own when it comes to blushes, but used in moderation it is really, really pretty. It doesn't look as pink and as bright and a kind of candy colour once it's on your cheeks. It just gives a nice pinky glow, which I think is really, really pretty when used very sparingly. And then last of all, looking very bruised, battered and overused, and probably one that I'm willing to bet about 90% of you have in your collections, is Rose Gold. And this was really the blush that got my whole love for sleek blushes started. I remember when this came out and a lot of people were comparing it to Nell's Orgasm, and I had to go and get it because I was just obsessed with that colour. And it is such a beautiful shade. It's a very statement colour. It's quite bright, very corally, very warm toned, and it has a kind of goldy shimmer running through it too, so it gives a very highlighted look to your cheeks, but it's one that I still think is so beautiful. So onto eye products, and I have a couple of real standout things that I absolutely love here. So these are the Maybelline colour tattoos, and I remember when I heard that these were coming over from the States and I was just so excited about them. I remember going into Boots pretty much every single week and just looking in the drawers underneath the counters. Does anybody else do that? I know it's probably really bad and you shouldn't do it, but just checking to see if they'd come in yet. So my two favourite colours are actually quite similar. They're on the sort of neutral, boring side of eyeshadows, but they're the ones that I love the most, and these are Creamy Beige and On and On Bronze. So On and On Bronze I think is the first one that I bought. I think this is called Bad to the Bronze in the US, but I think it is the same colour pretty much, and this is a really pretty kind of silvery taupey shade. It's definitely not bronze, it's not got a single hint of warmth in it at all, so I'm not sure why it's called bronze, but it is a really lovely one. And then Creamy Beige is actually a very similar shade, except it's not got any shimmer or any glitter, no metallic look to it, and this has actually become a real staple in my makeup routine. I use this pretty much every single time I wear eyeshadow, and it's a really nice alternative to using a very light flesh tone base. It just really brings out the colour of your eyeshadows, it deepens it slightly, and it gives a nice sort of blend into the crease too, so I really, really like the shade. And the formulas of these as well are just so nice. They don't crease, they really stick down once they've set in, but they are really easy to blend as well, so definitely my favourite cream eyeshadows. A very similar product actually, and one that I just love and couldn't recommend enough, are the number 7 shade Define Sticks. I've talked about these so many times and they are just so wonderfully amazing. They are basically just a cream eyeshadow, but they're in a stick, so you can use them as an eyeliner, which is what I tend to do most of the time, and they just don't budge at all. They're so long lasting, it's amazing. I always remember when I first swatched these when I was trying them out in the store and then went to wash my hand and couldn't get them off at all, so they're really, really great if you like your makeup to last a long time, and they're also just so easy to travel with and quick to use, so I couldn't rave about these enough. Coffee Bean, definitely my favourite shade. If you are really into your standard single powder eyeshadows, they can be quite hard to find a really good formula in the drugstore. They do tend to be a bit chalky and cakey at times and not the best pigmented products, but L'Oreal, I think recently, I say recently, it was probably about a year ago, released these eyeshadows. These are the Colorische LOmbre pure eyeshadows, and I think they have about 10 or 12 shades, probably even more than that. I have the shades Quartz, Fumé and Café Saint Germain, which I'm sorry I probably butchered the French language there, I apologise, but these are a dark brown and then a more nude taupey shade, and these are really great because they come in different finishes. I have the Lumiere and the nude, and they also do a matte, so really great if you like your different finishes from your eyeshadows. The dark one especially I get so much use out of. It's one of those one wash wonder eyeshadows that you can wear alone, you don't need anything else on it, and it just really works. It's almost quite a smoky look too, so it's a very simple smoky eye with this one, and I do also like to use it as an eyeliner, just smudged into the roots of my lashes, so I get a lot of use out of these, and they do have so many amazing shades, so whatever you're looking for, they're bound to have the right colour for you. L'Oreal do seem to have my heart when it comes to eye products. There are two other things that I just absolutely love and swear by. The first one is Miss Manga mascara. I won't bore you all again with talking about it, but it's just the best volumizing, thickening, full looking mascara ever, and you really should try it if you haven't. And then the second is the Perfect Slim Superliner. I don't really wear liquid liner as much as I used to. It used to be a daily must have for me. I couldn't really walk out the house without wearing it, but when I do use it every so often nowadays, this is always the one that I reach for. Felt tip nibbed liners are definitely always my favourites. I think they're just really great to work with, really easy to create a nice cap flick or a liquid line, whether you want a thin one or a thick one, and this has such a nice nib. It's very thin and very long, and it's a bit flexible but still, you know, stiff and enough to hold itself when you're lining your eyes, so definitely my favourite liquid liner of the bunch. One thing that used to be almost impossible to find in the drugstore were good brow products. I think back in the day the only option was the Rimmel brow pencil, which was in the shade Hazel and was just the most orange thing you could possibly put on your eyebrows. It didn't work for anyone at all. Recently though, there's been a bit of a revival in the drugstore brow section. I think we have Cara Delevingne to thank for that one, and there's just so many options now to choose from, but my absolute favourite, which you probably all know, is the Soap & Glory Archery pencil. I can't rave about these enough. I just think they're so great. If you are a lover of pencil, even if you're not a lover of pencil for your brows, these will convert you. They're basically identical copies of the Anastasia Brow Wiz, so if you love that, these are about a third of the price. The only thing is they come in just 2 shades. I have Hot Chocolate and Blondshell here, which is all they do as of yet. I hope they bring out more colours soon though, but I like to use a combination of both of them, and I find that way you can get a really nice tonal, very natural looking brow. And then we come to the lip products, and this was definitely the hardest thing to narrow down. There are so many amazing choices and options in the drugstore. I think it's probably where the majority of my lipsticks actually come from, and I just love so many things, but I've narrowed it down to 3 things that are just unmissable. You absolutely have to try them. So the first are the Revlon Colour Burst Matte Balms, and there was definitely a bit of a moment for lip crayons and lip pencils, things like that in the drugstore. I think every single brand came out with one within about a week of each other. It was just crazy. There was so much to choose from, but I think of all of them, the Revlon ones won. These are just so pigmented and creamy and matte and just beautiful, and there are so many shades to choose from. I have the bright pink, which is unapologetic. I have a more nude option called Elusive, and then I have probably my favourite, which is Audacious, and this is a bright pure orange lipstick. There's just so much I love about these. The packaging is just beautiful, and I love how they're a twist up instead of sharpenable pencils. I think that's just a bit easier to use, and they are so comfortable to wear as well. They never feel too drying or too cakey on your lips. They just sit there really nicely, so absolutely love those. Can't rave about them enough. The one thing that they don't do too well though is the reds, and you all know I'm a lover of a red lip, but the red shades in this range aren't the best. So for that I turn to the Maybelline Colour Drama lipsticks, and I've talked about these a lot recently. I absolutely love them. I think they're probably the best formula of lipstick I've ever come across in the drugstore, and for a red they are just so beautiful. I have the shades Fab Orange, which is a very orangey tone, very NARS Red Square-esque red, and then the shade Red Essential, which is actually a very similar NARS Cruella dupe, so a bit of NARS dupes here with these two. They're definitely more of a lipstick type formula than the Revlon ones. They're a lot more pigmented, and they do seem to last a lot longer. I can pretty much put these on in the beginning of the day, 8 o'clock in the morning, and they'll still be on at 5 in the evening, and I can eat and drink and they just don't wear off at all, and yet they still feel very comfortable and very wearable as well. So these I absolutely love, especially these 2 colours. I have tried some of the lighter ones and I wasn't such a fan of them. I think the reds are definitely the ones to go for. And then last of all, sticking with the theme of course of the bold and bright lipsticks, has to be the Bourjois Rouge Edition Velvets. I think these are probably the only lip lacquers I've ever come across in the drugstore that actually work and that I actually like. These actually really remind me of the Hourglass Opaque Rouges, which are just beautiful liquid lipsticks. They're so pretty, the colours are amazing, but the formulas are just incredibly drying and dehydrating for your lips, whereas these are really comfortable to wear, they're really soft and they go on very nicely. You can put more than one layer of this on without it looking very cakey. The shade Hot Pepper in particular is such a lovely red. This is actually what I'm wearing on my lips today, and I've had this on for quite a few hours now and it still feels really nice and comfortable to wear. They start off as a very liquidy, very glossy lipstick, and then they set down, but they don't dry out your lips in the process, so they're really, really lovely ones. So that was a rather large roundup of all my drugstore makeup favourites. I hope you enjoyed watching that. Let me know what your #1 must-have drugstore makeup item is, and if you can't pick one, just tell me all of them. I would love to know. Don't forget as well to check out the first part of this weekend's drugstore takeover, which was a haul, and that is up on my blog right now. I will leave a link down below for you. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all soon.